불투명한 미래, 급변하는 환경 속에서 많은 기업들은 지속가능한 성장을 모색하고 있습니다. 이런 가운데 현대 기업들에게 필요한 혁신은 무엇일까요? 오늘 세계적인 혁신 기업으로 꼽히고 있는 제너럴 일렉트릭의 부사장 비브 골드스타인을 모시고 이야기 나눠보겠습니다. 특히나 제너럴 일렉트릭에서 이 새로운 혁신의 도구로 도입한 패스트웍스의 전략과 그 성과에 대한 이야기 나눠보도록 하겠습니다.
1879년 에디슨 전구로 시작해 전 세계 전기혁명을 일으키며 137년 혁신의 역사를 써온 기업. 연매출 1,486억 달러, 170여 개 나라에 진출해 발전과 항공, 헬스케어, 운송 등 다양한 사업을 영위하는 이노베이터. 새로운 성장 전략 패스트웍스를 통해 또 한 번 혁신 실험을 하고 있는 GE.
Okay, so thanks for joining us. Yeah, it's the first interview of you, so please introduce yourself briefly to our viewers.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for inviting me to join you in Korea. My name is Viv Goldstein, and I'm one of the co-founders of FastWorks, which is the way that GE is bringing better outcomes to our customers faster.
Yeah, so would you tell me the purpose of the visiting Korea this time?
Yes, I was invited to join the conference, which has been fabulous. It's been a wonderful, wonderful experience. And I've had the opportunity to meet a number of Korean dignitaries and politicians and some great people. I just wish that I could be here for longer.
Yeah, actually I was in there when you're giving a speech. So I'm talking about your speech after a minute. And before that, we're talking about innovation.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, so
did you enjoy the speech?
Yes.
Good.
It was really great.
Good.
It was really powerful. And I gave the energy from you.
Excellent.
Yes, so it was really nice.
Thank you.
So GE is one of the most innovative company now, which has started with Edison's light bulb. And it is the only existed company now among the Wall Street Journal's list of 12 America's great company in 19,000. When people talk about GE, they call to mind the word innovation. So what do you think innovation is as the global director of GE?
So to me, innovation is about creating new value for our customers. That could be a product, it could be a process, or it could be a business model. It's about delivering outcomes for our customers in a better way.
Yes, right. So innovation is creating something
Absolutely.
for customers, right? So that's why many Korean companies like Samsung or Hyundai Motors are finding their way for their growth with innovation. So what would be the key factors of innovative way for them?
So I think what's important about innovation is about solving a customer need. It's about solving for an outcome rather than it being about technology looking for a solution. So one of the things we're very focused on, particularly with FastWorks, is how do we really understand our customer? How do we discover what needs they have? How do we discover what impact they're trying to drive? And once we have that level of knowledge, that's when the innovation almost comes to play, because that's when we start to create a hypothesis for a solution.
Right. So you delivered the message about the FastWorks as an innovative business method in Key-Platform Conference.
Right.
Yes, right. GE also has studied the FastWorks model for 3 years.
Yep.
So let me ask you about some question, the FastWorks in GE.
Absolutely.
So first of all, we need to define what exactly FastWorks means. So how can you define it?
So in its simplest, FastWorks is a set of tools, principles, and behaviors that deliver these better outcomes. And it's deliberately simple. It's deliberate that we just say it's tools, principles, and behaviors. Because people will behave the way you hold them accountable. So we've created a set of behaviors that we want people to exhibit. We've given them a toolkit, so we've given them a framework and a process to follow. Most importantly, we've made it really simple, and it just makes sense. So we've taken what could have been something very complicated, and make it something real, just the way 170,000 employees are going to work.
But I think the FastWorks, FastWorks is a flexible decision-making method, like start a very small company. But the big company like GE is really complex system you have. So I don't know. I'm not sure the FastWorks method will be appropriate to a huge multinational company like GE.
Right.
So how come did your company decide to start FastWorks?
Right. Well, it's an interesting question. I was at a conference for The Economist about a week ago, and one of the attendees came up to me and he said, "Can't work. FastWorks doesn't work. You can't make a company like GE act fast." And I said, "Let me tell you some stories. Let me tell you some examples." And he left saying, "Now I get it. Now I understand." So FastWorks came to be because the world is changing. Because 30, 40 years ago, when we were a US-centric company with fewer products in a less complicated world, productivity, efficiency, cost out was really important. And that was the days of Six Sigma.
Yes, right.
It was all about control, and that was the right thing for the time. But since the 90s, our growth has come particularly from outside of the US. We're far more global as a company. But with that globality and global development comes complexity. So we were becoming, like you say, a large company that sometimes could be slow.
Yeah.
In addition, competition is changing. And so the world of startups are changing the way people think. Startups are fast, they're nimble, they're customer-centric, they drive efficiency. GE has scale, skills, resources. What FastWorks does is it brings those two capabilities into one single place. It means that we can leverage what's best of a startup with what's best of GE, and you come together and act and behave in a very different way. But you can't just tell people to do that, because that's not fair. And that's, if you just tell people to do it, that's when it's not going to work.
Yes, right.
That's why you have to create the entire environment, the entire ecosystem for change. And that ecosystem is a set of behaviors. It's the way you hold people accountable, and it's a framework to give people to follow. And I have to tell you, our employees love it. I love it. I'm super passionate about it. And our employees love it, and they say, well, it's just the way to work. So, we're seeing really, really great results.
Yeah, I can feel your passion right now.
Thank you.
But you mentioned about the Six Sigma, and some analysts say FastWorks is a new Six Sigma. So what is the biggest difference between the Six Sigma and the FastWorks?
Right. The biggest difference is in Six Sigma, you know the outcome you're trying to drive for. And it's somewhat of an internal focused process. FastWorks is very much grounded in the customer, where your outcome is uncertain. And the two live really happily together. In fact, one of the neat things about FastWorks is it's a mindset. And so you can use some of the traditional GE tools, such as change acceleration or workout or Six Sigma, as part of it. So our engineering teams will still use Six Sigma, but they'll also use it to now make sure that what they're working on is solving for a need that the customer has.
Yes, right. The word uncertainty is more and more higher than before.
Absolutely.
Right. So
Absolutely.
the FastWorks is more suitable than the Six Sigma right now. You mean that?
I think they're both equally important. What FastWorks does, it gives us the mindset and the approach to work in a different way because of this huge uncertainty in the world that we're in today.
Okay, right, I understand. So how many divisions in GE is following the FastWorks method?
Every business.
Every business?
Every business, yes. So it started as a way to bring new products to market faster. That was the intent and the origin of FastWorks, which was how could we introduce new products faster. And so we started with a number of projects, and in 2013 we had about 20 or so projects. In 2014 we actually had 400 projects. But the more projects, and most of these were new product introductions or process improvements, but the more we did it, the more our employees who touched FastWorks, and that's about 30,000, 40,000 employees, said, it just makes sense. And so what we're now doing is scaling FastWorks to become the way we work.
So, but the FastWorks is not familiar with the other peoples in the world or in the Korea. So, would you give me some successful examples of the FastWorks?
Absolutely, absolutely. We've got some great examples. We've got some very human-centered examples, such as the work we've been doing in Iraq. Where the Ministry of Health asked us if we could provide equipment for them to increase the number of hospital beds. And instead of simply selling them equipment, we spent a lot of time on the ground in Iraq really trying to help the Ministry of Health answer what were they trying to solve for. And as we spent time with them in market, we came to realize that it wasn't just about equipment, that if they were going to build new hospitals, they needed sourcing or procurement processes, and they didn't have them. They needed improved training for the medical professionals, so we helped them train people. We helped them set up neonatal incubators, which are for tiny premature babies, and we helped them set up a distribution network. So we moved from being purely a product-centric solution to really understanding that the outcome that the Ministry of Health in Iraq was wanting to solve for.
But your company is a manufacturing company.
We are a manufacturing company and a technology company and an information company.
But why your company do just, Iraq needs equipment, then you just give them equipment.
Right.
Not for the system, not for the educating systems, right?
Yeah, you know, it's a huge transformation, because what it means that we move from is selling a product to working with our customers on outcomes. And how can you collaborate and co-create on solving for an outcome? Because actually that makes you a better business partner. And a better business partner means you build better relationships. And that becomes a much better business proposition.
Right, and make more profit, right?
Ultimately, you know, we're a public company, so we do have to think about that. But we also have a mission.
Right.
And that mission is to make the world a better place. And you can do both. You can do both. And just selling equipment doesn't help you do both.
Yes, so, and how about education to team members? I mean, it would be the most important to make an excellent team for successful FastWorks. So I would like to know if there's a rule to make a team as a FastWorks.
Yes, so a couple of things. Firstly, you asked about education. So in 2013 and 2014, we trained our leadership team on FastWorks. So we took about 5,000 of our leaders through a training program on what FastWorks actually means. And so they learnt to ask different sets of questions. Rather than always knowing the answers, now our leadership team asks questions, and they ask questions such as, how do you know? How did the customer validate it? What are you doing with the customer validated information? So it's changing our leadership team's frame of reference. So that's been very important as far as the training is concerned. This year, we're now rolling out FastWorks to all of our employees, and we're giving them access to information in a number of ways. The first way is we're creating a digital experience for all employees. The second is we're creating an immersion on what FastWorks is every day that's going to be available to all employees.
So every 300,000 workers can see.
Absolutely. Absolutely, and we're focusing at first on the 170,000 who are the non-hourly paid employees, but everybody is going to be able to see it. But if you're working on a FastWorks project, you apply a different set of rigor and a different set of tools. And what we suggest is when you start the project, when you're doing your very, very early stage discovery, if this is even something that will create value for our customers, you start with asking the question, should we do something? Not can we, not technically can we build it, but should we build it? And so we have a very, very small team, 2 or 3 people.
Only 2 or 3 people?
Only 2 or 3 people on that very early stage discovery. When we have that validation for our customer that says this could be of interest, then we start to build a bigger team. But it's still small, still probably about 7 or 8 people.
It's kind of a startup company, right?
It's like a startup company, absolutely. And the critical thing is they're cross-functional. So they're not all HR, and they're not all finance, or they're not all marketing. They're cross-functional. and they have to have a passion. They have to have a passion for change and an excitement about doing something in a very different way, in a very, very fast, learning, iterative way.
If the team more smaller, then each team member have more authority than usual, right?
Absolutely.
And I think I'm kind of worrying about that. They need to take more responsibility.
Yep.
If the project fails, then they should take risk.
Right.
So is there some options to encourage them to take risk?
Absolutely there is. What we do is we provide guardrails for the teams. What that means is we train them on a series of questions to ask, a series of tools and processes and frameworks that they should follow. So the first thing is they're very, very well trained on how to follow the FastWorks framework. The second thing we do is we work with their leadership team. And so they get given a certain amount of responsibility that they wouldn't normally be given. And they become super independent, and they have ownership and passion. And one of the things that we work very, very closely with these teams on is to say, if you find out early and inexpensively that you're not creating value for the customer, it's okay to stop. I know, it's okay. It's absolutely okay. And that's so unusual because a lot of people would say, well, that's failing.
Yeah, right, that's failing.
But it's not. It's about learning. It's about getting validation of your hypotheses.
Yeah.
And as an organization, we would far rather we get that validation very early on in the cycle than we build something that the customer doesn't see value in.
Like that doesn't make a light bulb.
Yep. He didn't fail. He just found 10,000 ways it wasn't going to work. And we need to bring that back into the organization because people are scared. They don't want to fail. But it's not about a product failing. It's about, was your hypothesis wrong? And it takes courage to be able to say, oh, my hypothesis was wrong. So what we're actively doing is creating stories, positive stories about people who had the courage to say, short period of time, small amount of money, customer didn't see value. My hypothesis was wrong, and we use the jargon. We say, I'm pivoting.
Pivoting.
Pivoting, yeah. It's called, so we call it the power to pivot. And I'm changing direction. My vision is still the same because my customer still has the same need.
Yeah, right.
But the way I was solving for it, not the right way to go.
Yeah, so direction, everybody pivoting the directions.
Absolutely.
To resolve the customer's needs, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, right. So I think the FastWorks model would be nice for big companies in Korea also, but they have a lot of decision-making steps, and they are really boring, and they also have recognized it stifles innovative ideas.
Right.
So what should they consider if they want to take the FastWorks model in their business?
Okay, I think you have to have totally supportive leadership team. That's number one. You have to have leaders that are prepared to be uncomfortable. Uncomfortable because they don't know the answer. But the customer validates the answer. So it's no longer the decision no longer exclusively rests with the leaders. What we have is customer validated truths now. The second is you have to have the courage to go fast. And sometimes that's difficult. And to cut through the bureaucracy. But what we found is when you put the customer at the front and the customer at the center, that really helps this. The next thing I think that's important, so you have to have leadership behaving in a different way. The second thing I think you need to think about is the way people are compensated and the behaviors that you want your employees to exhibit. Because there's no point in telling employees to behave in a different way if your compensation structure is totally different. So you have to reframe that. And we create environments that we call safe to try, which means it's okay to learn, it's okay to find out that your hypothesis was wrong, and it's okay to make a change in direction.
So you just wait for them, right?
You create the culture. You create the culture. It's about speed and urgency. And our chairman, Jeff Immelt, says everything is on the clock, which means it's all about speed. It's all about getting to those customer outcomes as quickly as we can in very, very small, very focused, very dedicated teams.
Okay, so FastWorks is one of the effective solutions for innovative business method. And let's move on to the latest story of GE. Okay. So GE has a lot of businesses such as aviation and healthcare, energy, transportation, and these are generating a high level of synergy for GE's growth. So what's the main value of GE for making this effect?
Okay, well, there's a couple of things to think about. Most importantly, we now have the GE store. And what the GE store does, it brings all the resources of GE to bear with our global research center, with our software center of excellence, and enables us to kind of imagine and build things that others just can't. Because we bring synergies, let's say, from healthcare, using healthcare equipment into our oil and gas business. Mm-hmm. And no other company can do things like that.
Yes, right.
So.
How can communicate with the divisions like very far from each other?
Right. We have a number of councils that help us communicate with businesses, and we have things such as the Commercial Council, and we have what we call our blueprint reviews, where we understand what are some of the strategic priorities within each business, and we look to how can our other businesses collaborate and to provide them with resources. We also have our leadership event, which is held in January, that talks about what are some of the critical initiatives that are taking place within the organization. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, we have what we call big data, where we bring together data that comes off our equipment, with the equipment, and incredible people that can do the analysis to build what we call the industrial internet, which is really about the future. It's about using data to be predictive rather than responsive.
So when they find a solution of the emergence of the other divisions, then they use also the FastWorks method?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, we found it being used in all of our businesses.
Okay, thank you. And I would ask you to give an advice to working mother in Korea.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. You have
that's an interesting one.
You have 3 children, right? And many Korean women usually stop working for taking care of their kids.
Right.
So what would be an important thing to balance work and family as a mother, and what should a company or government provide them?
Okay, I'm going to start with the latter because the former is probably a bit difficult. So companies have to provide women with the opportunity to do both, which means flexible working arrangements. Yeah. It means parental leave, not just mother's leaves, but dads can get leave as well. It means creating an environment where it's fun to talk about being a mother. Yeah. It's about promoting people based on skills, not on gender. And I'm a huge proponent on people and their skill set, not whether you're a woman, a man, not whether you're old or young. Yeah. It's about people as individuals. And so I think organizations need to provide that environment for people to have that flexibility. One of the things that I think is extremely important is not activities, but outcome. So what outcome do you as an individual, what can you deliver to your organization? Not what are you doing, not what's your checklist, but what is the outcome you're able to provide? And too often we measure people's activities. We need to measure what people deliver. And so as a manager and as a mother, I'll tell a story about this morning. Rachel and I were walking down to the meeting, and I said, you just have to excuse me a minute. I said, my daughter's playing a lacrosse game. And she's at school in Boston. She's at Tufts. And she's a lacrosse goalie. So while we're walking, I'm watching real time my daughter playing lacrosse. Because to me, being a mother is absolutely the most passionate thing I could do. I love my job. I love the change that I'm able to make. But I'm also a mother, and I'm hugely proud of it. So can we have it all? I don't know that anybody can ever have it all. But can you try? Absolutely. And I think there are some things that are really important, which is you have to be present. You have to be present whether you're being a mother or whether you're at work. You have to be present. But you also, as a manager, have to give your employees that opportunity as well. So if one of my employees says to me, their child's graduating or they've got a medical appointment, that's so important because they'll then give back to me and to the company.
Yes, right.
So you treat people as human beings and you treat people the way you want to be treated yourself. Yes, right. So I love it. I adore my children and I love my career, so I'm super lucky.
Yes, right. So we need to make it kind of this culture, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the last question. So I ask this question every time to my interviewee at the end of this show. So the world economic growth is slowed now, and many Korean businessmen are struggling against crisis. So would you give an advice for them to cheer up?
To cheer up?
Yeah, to cheer up.
I think there's always an opportunity. I think you just have to be prepared to change. I think as a country, as a company, as an individual, you have to be comfortable with change. You have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, and you have to thrive in uncertainty. And throughout my entire career, this is the most exciting job, the most exciting role I've ever had, because it's all about uncertainty. And you have to love it. You have to thrive in it, and it has to make you a better person. So that would be my advice, is it's okay. It's okay not to know the answers. It's okay to be uncomfortable. It's not okay to not know how to find out the answer.
전 세계의 전기혁명을 일으키며 글로벌 혁신기업으로 우뚝 선 GE. 140년간의 지속성장을 해올 수 있었던 건 고객 중심의 다양한 혁신 전략 덕분이었는데요. 이번에 새롭게 도입한 패스트웍스를 통해 이 세계 기업들의 혁신 모델로 고객들에게 더 사랑받을 수 있는 기업이 되기를 기대해 보겠습니다. 오늘 이 시간 비브 골드스타인 제너럴 일렉트릭 부사장과 함께했습니다. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for time.
감사합니다. Thank you.
Thank you.